Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. How are you doing today? I hope you're having a great evening. It is Wednesday and it is October the 16th. Can you believe it? 2024. And you have tuned in to the Power of Transformation broadcast. I am your hostess. I am Dr. Paula Obie. And I'm so glad that you are here with us tonight. Last week we had, a couple things going on. We told you to join us back this week and you're here. And we're so glad that you are here. And you know what we do? We like to make sure that our friends tune into the power of transformation. And sometimes they need a little bit of a nudge. We have to, text them. And if we have time, call them and tag them and say, Dr. Paul is on. And you do not want to miss the power of transformation. And, I do the same thing. I'll pick up my phone and I'll send a few texts just so that my people are on the line. All right. So I'm going to do the same thing and we're going to get started. We'll see you in just a few minutes. Take care. See you soon. Hello, hello, hello. Well, I'm back. Every week we have a guest, special guest, or I will talk to you from the heart. Well, tonight I'm going to be speaking to you from the heart. I call it a heart to heart with Dr. Paula because there's something that I really want to share, something that I prayed about, something that's, just really important to me to share with you. And tonight's no different. The title of our conversation tonight is emotional spending. Mhm. And what I want to do is I want to share with you a personal testimony. This is my personal testimony. This is what happened to me a few years ago. And I didn't understand everything at the time. I'm hoping that my testimony of how God moved me from that place to now and the steps that I took to get here will be an inspiration to you. Sometimes we have to go through the hard times in order for God to help us get to the Jeremiah 29:11. Well, a few years ago, I had a great plan. And my great plan was this is how I want to live. I want to take care of myself. I want to live in a safe neighborhood. I want to drive a car that doesn't break down. So I want to take care of myself. I want to make sure that I can do things that will help me enjoy life. And God was good to me because I moved to a city, got a great job, and my plan was working. Paid off my car, took care of the down payment for my house, and I am content and I'm very, very, very happy. I took a risk on a job I did not even know I was qualified for, but guess who knew? It was God. And then, you all, I hit this brick wall. So sometimes when you talk about emotional spending, you talk about how you spend the money on yourself. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I want to set the stage. I hit a brick wall and it impacted my spending. Now, remember my goal. My goal was to take care of myself, be in a safe neighborhood, drive a car that didn't break down all the time, make sure I had everything that I needed. A really nice life, safe, peaceful. Remember the word peaceful. You're going to hear some keywords tonight. That's one of them, peaceful. And then I had an encounter with one of my very first, quote unquote, unknown triggers. I suffered an emotional tsunami, and it was a sudden death. It was a sudden death of my coworker. My cohort worker, who was like a sister to me. She was the one who was going to be my decorator. She was the financial advisor. We were worked on projects together. We had, conjoining offices. We were a team. Well, I had to say goodbye to her suddenly, and it rocked my world. I mean, hit me like a ton of bricks that I would never see her again. Like a sister to me. And that's when I realized that things were changing. Now, I realized it in hindsight. I did not realize it as I was going along. But the shock and the confusion and my reaction to things were no longer the way I reacted. I was what a lot of people call operating in an altered state. I know I was hurt. And at that time, when I reflect on how things ended, if I have to focus on what was going on for me then. During that time, when you're in that place, people will come into your life. Now, if you're in an altered state, you really shouldn't be making any decisions. You should be focused on your healing. But you're like in a difficult place because you really want someone there because you're suffering a loss, and you really need someone there because you're suffering a loss. However, you need the right person there. You need the right person around you. If you don't have the right person around you, you're going to suffer. And in my case, I suffered financially. The person that gets close to you will have an impact. And it's very subtle sometimes. And when I just looked at that time, it wasn't that these people are bad, they don't need to be put in jail. We're not talking about that. We're talking about people who step in to a scenario in your life where you're no longer paying the attention that you need to be paying. You're no longer operating the way you did before your tsunami, emotional tsunami. That's what I call sudden death. It happens suddenly, takes the wind out of you, and you've got to get yourself together. I'm grateful now. I'm grateful now for grief counseling, but I didn't have it then. So let me tell you what I mean by emotional spending. So you got this world that's new. It is an altered state. And maybe it's somebody that you meet that's kind of new. And they say things to you like, wow, this is a really nice place. You can afford this? And you nod. God's been good to me. Wow, that's a really nice car. You can afford this? Mm-hmm. What you don't realize is that they may be counting your money. It's not funny. And I may laugh at some things because I'm giggling. It's not funny. They're busy going, wow, you are really blessed. I am. The bottom line is I worked for it. I really did. And I worked a hard job and I worked long hours to get there. It wasn't just given to me. But what am I hearing? And how am I reacting? I can tell you that when I finally got to that place where I realized I was no longer taking the right steps, I was no longer practicing the priority financial planning, and I was not looking at the high priority bills. Let's just say I was no longer spending my money correctly. When I got to that point and I had to drive away from that residence, tears streaming down my face, I said to God, how does a person like me get here? I am too smart for this. How did I get here? Have you ever asked yourself that question? And he gave me 6 words as I was driving down the road. Said, you did not keep your word. You did not keep your word. It was correct. Once I settled down in my new residence and I had time to think, I had time to myself, I pulled all of my financial statements boxes and pulled them towards me and I started going through them. I wanted to know what in the world caused me to change my spending habits. What in the world caused me to stop looking after myself? I can say that it was the grief and not managing my grief well, also not managing the environment in which I was in. Rule number 1, when you are in a tsunami, a grief tsunami, that is not the time to be making decisions. Again, I said it's weird because you want to. It's not the time. You're in an altered state. was really interesting in my case, that's when people, well, can I do this? Well, we should do this. And how about this? And you're just kind of riding that wave, trying to get through the grief, trying to get through all phases of your grief. And they're taking it as a yes. And you're like, whatever. When you're at that point, you're dangerous. They're dangerous. And so are you because you're not paying attention. What got you to the point, what got me to that point was making good decisions. So again, I've moved to the new residence. I've had to say goodbye. And now I'm looking at my statements. If you want to know what's important to you and what you spend your money on and what you love, look at your financial statements. I have my debit card and my checks. I would use that card for everything because I was I'd grown accustomed to really managing my money well until that period of time when I did not manage my money well. Some of you might be able to relate, maybe not. If you think that there is someone who needs to hear this, I'm going to pause, tag them, call them, tell them to listen, or tell them to listen afterwards. Let's get back to my story. So I'm looking at and reviewing my financial statements. And the very first thing that I notice is that a lot of the statements, a lot of my spending had nothing to do with me. Nothing. The Bible says in Luke 14:26-23, count up the costs. You can read it for yourself. Count up the cost to make sure you have everything that you need. How in the world did I go from spending money wisely to not spending money wisely? Well, I kept looking. What did I spend it on? Some of the expenditures, you all, I didn't even remember. And what I know I got caught up in is a conversation that did not need to happen. You're at a vulnerable place. Somebody might just hint, and this is an example of what they might hint. Oh, wow, I really wish I had a new car. Oh, all I really need is this and this and this. And here you are, because I'm telling you, I was in a content place. I was happy. I had my job. I was traveling. I'm fine. But in this place, because the person had been there, I nodded my head to, okay, sure, we can do that. And I nodded my head to a whole lot of sure we can do that because I really wasn't thinking that it wasn't a good idea. Oh, sure, we can do that. Looking through those statements and seeing that the majority of the money wasn't spent on myself, listen, it was heartbreaking for me, but it was also eye-opening. Let me say, and it was also eye-opening. Remember I said I was content? Remember I said I had everything that I needed? Remember I said that? When I looked through the financial statements, I did not see anything that the house needed. Didn't need any repairs. Didn't see anything that my car needed. It didn't need any major repairs. But you can spend and not think about it. A lot of people will say, you mean you didn't buy yourself anything? Very little compared to what I was paying for. Paying for and not knowing it. What I got caught up in is something that I want to warn many of you about. If you are in that emotional place, emotional tsunami, or even if it's not a sudden death, but you're grieving over someone and you find yourself there, go get grief counseling. Because the first thing that the grief counselor is going to do is say, don't make any decisions yet. You're not capable of making really sound decisions. Heal. During this time, as I was reflecting on my own life, the decisions that I was making, they could have waited. I didn't need to make those decisions. But what was also really, 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 really important was that it seemed as if I was trying to prove a point or something. I'm being really sincere. I want you to hear my heart. When someone says, oh, I wish I had that. It was almost as if there was something inside of me that says, "Oh, I need to make it happen." Really? I'm fine. I don't need anything. I need to make it happen. Well, that I need to make it happen, I'm saying they never got satisfied. They did not. It did. They never got satisfied. Every time you turn around, there was a conversation about what they didn't have. I'm not in the right place to give them the information that I'm going to share with you later that I finally learned. I'm in that place of, well, it's more blessed to give than to receive. It is. That's the word. But when you have someone taking advantage of you, or when you're letting someone, let's make this taking advantage of you because you're not thinking the way you should, later on down the line, you will recognize that you haven't taken care of what God gave you. You're not being a good steward. And I saw that. As I'm flipping through the financial statements, I thought, my goodness, I didn't keep my word. Because my word said that I would provide a great place for me to live. And in order to do that, by a certain day, on or before a certain day, this amount of money needed to be paid. So I started looking at when things were being paid late. And there was really no reason, none at all. My income did change a little bit, but I had a backup plan. Remember, I told you I was doing some planning. I had a backup plan. What I had saved and ready to go was gone. Picture this. Someone has an empty basket, and when they leave, they have a whole lot of full baskets. And my financial statement showed me the person who paid for them. It was painful, and I'm frowning because what I'm getting ready to say next, some of you may or may not like. Another thing I got caught up in was this person had a diagnosis. And every single day, I heard about it. Sometimes they thought they were going to die. I mean, and it was just like real. And I don't know if I was further traumatized, but it was like every day I heard something that made me realize that this person lives totally different, life than I do. I don't have to worry about those kind of health things. And I was told that, well, you don't have to worry about feeling this way, and you don't have to worry about living in this world. I'm like, no, I don't. Well, the question for me was, did I try to fix it? We're not God. And maybe they're watching your reaction as they're talking to you about their scenario, situation, medical condition that they talk about every hour, and it's wearing you down and you don't even know it. And all the other baggage and so because we're creating now, the environment's kind of getting kind of hectic. So now we're creating this conversation that's not necessarily positive. Maybe I felt sorry. I don't know. I'm still digging for some of the answers. All I know is I gave an emotional response. And the emotional response, the majority of the time, was spending. Because it's really interesting how someone will say, well, I was looking at this. I sure would like to have it for my birthday. All of these different things. And there I was, content. I didn't need anything. And I saw in my financial statements where I spent way too much. That's what I mean by emotional spending on the wrong things. Way too many conversations, too many swipes. And my bank was really good with giving you, the end of the year synopsis. Whew. It was eye opening for me. But I calmed down because I needed to learn something from it. I needed to learn that there are times when I need to be a little bit more responsible. Oh, believe me, that right there, it helped me. I can't tell you how many the cars I paid for. Just listen to me. I'm serious, you all. I'm serious. It's real. So when God said you didn't keep your word, I didn't keep my word to those folks, that I was contractually obligated to. I didn't keep my word to myself. I did pay my tithes and offerings while I, was working. But I lost my focus. And the sad part about it is I know, and I know you're saying, well, didn't anybody come to your rescue? Didn't any of your family members step in? Let me tell you something. When you are in an emotional state, your family members can try talking to you and you will not listen. You'll just say, oh, yeah, they don't know what they're talking about. And you've built this world where you are not open to sound judgment and you are certainly not open to sound advice. I'm a witness. We don't have time to go through all the scenarios that popped up this week as I was preparing, and we might need to do a part two. What's the point of my conversation? Was I being taken advantage of? Probably. It wasn't hard. I was in a place where I needed some help. I was in a place where I needed protecting, and I didn't. I was in a place where I did not focus on my dreams anymore. It's almost as if I was trying to make somebody else's dream come true. Have you ever been there? And not to mention, these kinds of interactions can continue to become chaotic. I didn't have to have a lot of conversation going on that was not good. It wasn't like loud or whatever like that. I didn't live in that world. But I felt like I lived in a manipulative world, something that I wasn't accustomed to. I learned later, looking, because hindsight's always 2020, that my world had become quite chaotic. I was a traveler. I traveled for a living. That's what I did. And it was great. I loved it. I loved going away and going on to those projects and managing those projects and just learning about life and going to other states. I loved it. That was the job I had. Now, all of a sudden, in the situation that I'm in, my traveling always seemed to be, it caused problems. So now, suddenly, there's chaos. And I don't do chaos well. And what I noticed was that as chaotic as it became, the tireder I became. So now my world is no longer my world. Why? Because at the point when I really needed some help, I wasn't open to it. I should have. I didn't seek it out, and it just didn't seem like it was going to be that destructive. But looking through those financial statements, I noticed thousands of dollars being spent on things that didn't need to be spent on. And in those thousands of dollars were my high priority bills. And those thousands of dollars were my high priority focus. That's what got me there. What got me to that point was we making great decisions. Now I'm just throwing money away. All those trips and this and that and the other. When God said you didn't keep your word, did that mean I was lying? Had I stepped into a world where I wasn't telling the truth? Had I connected myself to people who tell lies? I don't think so. I think the issue was me not having the courage to disconnect from that environment. I had control. I had the power. But for some reason, I did not have the courage. And I think, with all due respect to me, because I'm not putting me down, I kept saying, it'll be okay. It'll all work out. You know how we say those things? Honey, as I'm flipping through those financial statements, I'm surprised it worked out as well as it did. However, there was always my loving God in there because I was a contractual employee and I'd get these great contracts and I'd get through. But then there was a period of time when I didn't have a really good contract anymore. But my God was still trying to help me. He was trying to get me stronger. And he was trying to get me away from that environment. And some people, whenever you're trying to get away from that not so cool environment where you need to think a little bit, that's when, things get a little clingy. I was supposed to go on this great project. And it was a little different. The setup was different. I was going to be gone a little bit longer, and I was excited about it, but it didn't necessarily go over well, you know. So, seriously. So let me tell you about when I was on the plane and when I got ready to land, I could feel when that plane hit the tarmac, I could feel my temperature go up. There was At that point, I think I just had so much conversation and so much negativity and so much what if I become sick and so much what is going to happen to this and so much just so much chaos until by the time I got to that point, my temperature said my body, my temperature, my mind, my emotions, everything was like crash. And because my project manager used to be my lead instructor, what she did was she allowed me to be sick for 2 days and try to heal myself, and she readjusted my deliverables so that I could participate on the project, and I did. The issue is I could not come back. I was so sick until I couldn't come back. And again, when I looked at the contract that God had just laid at my feet, it would have taken care of all of my financial scenarios. So again, breathe. If you're in that situation now and you're feeling a little tension, sit back and breathe. Breathe. There's some great lessons to be learned. I heard some people say, oh, well, all is not lost. True. But it took a big chunk out of me, y'all. I will not tell you, it hurt. It really bothered me. But I started digging and I started saying, I don't ever want to be in this place again. Lord, show me what to do. Show me how to process grief moving forward. Definitely a grief counselor. Show me how to just recognize people who are there to just take or they ask anything. Just because they ask you, you don't have to say anything. Silence is golden. Sometimes when someone asks you for something, you need to just look at them and go, because this is a deal. When someone says, "Oh, I don't have a job like yours," I don't have I don't have the job like yours, or I don't have the opportunities that you have. They don't know how hard you work. They do have the same opportunities, but they may not want to work as diligently. They may not want to go to work every day. They may not want to take their great attitude to work every day so that they are eligible for promotion. They may not want to be a problem solver. So instead, someone else gets the new job. Maybe they don't want to work as hard. I worked hard, really hard. So if I worked that hard, why was it so easy for me to give away? Sit on that for a minute. Let me tell you about one of my assignments, just to kind of give you an idea of as to how hard I worked at times. Loved it, but it was not easy. We had a client and we had a big project in Colorado. I had a client, so I stayed, sent the lead instructor on. I stayed until the client left. I was going to be training. I had not practiced the curriculum. I didn't even know what I was going to train, but I love to train. So guess what? I knew I'd figure it out. I did all my reading on the plane, but I had a coworker, that same coworker that went to Glory and left me here. She said, call me when you get in, no matter what time, and I will come down and I will meet you and I will review the curriculum. I will teach you. She was an excellent teacher. I called her. It might have been 11:30, 12 o'clock when I got into Colorado. She was in my place in 10 minutes. We practiced and studied for an hour. We practiced and studied for an hour. I ordered a bunch of coffee. I practiced and studied for another hour. I maybe had 2 or 3 hours of sleep, but I went to work and I was diligent. So when someone says, I can't do what you do, think about it. Yes, they can. Maybe they don't want to. Well, are you wondering what that has to do with emotional spending? Well, let me draw the connection. If you're not willing to do the work and you want things, if you're not willing and you want things, you may be looking for someone else to give it to you. I was at that point, that's someone else. I'm not proud of it, but I learned from it. And let me tell you, it really was a springboard for me. I took a deep breath. I moved on. I continued to look through the financial statements. I prayed over myself and I asked God to give me everything I needed not to return to that position again. You're always going to have in this life grief. It may be an expected death. Maybe someone's been sick for a while. My grandmother was 97 when she left, knew she wasn't going to be around forever. There may be some other sudden deaths, but those sudden deaths you have to be mindful of because that's a time when you might, and the other deaths where you might not be thinking properly. But remember, I said I'd taken time to look through those statements. So my heart and my mind was focused on don't go through this again. We're not going through this again. Look at the triggers. I've already identified the trigger as grief, mm-hmm. Emotional tsunami, sudden death. Triggers. They may trigger me to be in an altered state where I don't need to make any decisions. So if someone wants something, the answer has to be, I'm not ready to make that decision right now. The answer has to be the timing is not good. And just as a side note, had I not been in that emotional tsunami, I might not have even taken the phone call. I might not even would have befriended this person. So these are things you need to think about. Your behavior should not change because someone else is in your life. But if you are in an altered state, it could. So I know we don't have a lot of time and I can come back with a part 2, but I want to share this with you. I did learn. And I came into contact with another kind of conversation. But I learned and I was learning. This time, I had a different conversation. Let's see how you feel about this conversation. And I'm just going to paraphrase some things. It was right after my grandmother passed. And I met someone and we were talking. And I heard the words. Whew, I'm between jobs right now. This is my response. Really? Yes, I'm between jobs and I got laid off and okay. So I'm listening. Are you listening to what I'm saying? And I said my response was okay. Not a quick response, but okay. So I've been offered a job. This is the person still talking to me. He told me offers a job, and I'm like, but I didn't take the job. And I asked, well, why not? Well, they weren't paying me as much as I needed or I wanted. They didn't give me my asking price. Remember, I've gone through the scenario now. I'm a little stronger than I used to be. And my rent's due, and my this is due, and that's due. Well, this is a person who is in a different place. I didn't raise my voice. I just asked a few questions. Listen to the first question I asked. Well, is the amount of money enough for you to pay your rent? The answer was, oh, yes. So now I'm thinking, good. You have a place, you won't be outside, you have a place to live. Okay. Is the amount of money that they're offering you enough to pay your light bill? Oh, yeah. The response was, oh, yes. Oh, yes. Okay. So I said, so you have a place to stay. You can be warm in the winter and cool in the summer. I'm calm. Is the amount of money enough to pay water? Oh, we don't have to worry about water because it's included in the rent. Great. So now you have water. Is the amount of money that they're offering you enough to pay your cable bill? Well, I don't have to worry about cable because even if I don't have cable, I can go to the office. Mm-hmm. Is the amount of money that they're offering you enough to pay your phone bill? Yes, just enough. So why aren't you taking the job again? That was a totally different response than I've ever had. Of course, I heard some other things. Well, because, and we're talking. And then once we get through that conversation. It was, and I really want to get my car back on the road, and I really want to do this. I'm in an altered state. My grandmother just passed, but I learned some things. I said, well, you don't have any mental or physical disabilities, right? I mean, you can work more than one job, but I don't want to work more than one job. I'm taking the bus now and I'm just embarrassed, but and all I need is, and that used to be a statement in which I would respond to. Now, at this particular point, when I'm talking to this person, I said, you should care enough about yourself to work a part time job. It's for you, it's your goal, it's to help you. Why not? Because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about my situation and my scenario. I'm digging myself up out of my situation. I do not, and I am not open to hearing somebody with a lot of excuses. I wasn't mean. I was very, very pointed in my conversation. And I said other things. I said, you may get there, and who knows? You may apply for a job, get your foot in the door and apply for a job, and you may get a promotion. I'm busy building up the conversation because I am not, and I repeat, going to step back into a place from which God had brought me out of. And I know that's not correct English, but you know what I'm saying. I'd come too far. I'd prayed too hard and cried too many tears. I was learning, because that's your job to learn. This show is based on Romans 12:2. And the excerpt of it says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. During that time when I was reviewing my statements, during that time when I was asking questions, during that time when I completed a self-assessment and I started thinking about it, I said, Lord, I need strength in this area. And I thought about so many other people who completely fall apart during grief. And folks just take advantage of them and they don't even know it. And then they look around and they say, oh my God, what happened? I can tell you what happened. You had that emotional tsunami. And that person that you allowed in, they kind of, helped themselves. Didn't have a lot to bring. And you made it worthwhile. As I said, these are not bad people. And you're not a bad person. I wasn't a bad person. It was a tragedy. But God still had a Jeremiah 29:11, which meant that I had to learn to keep my word. God is not a man that he shall lie, and neither is he a son of man that he shall repent. God does not lie. You need to don't lie. If you've got it in your pocket, read Proverbs. Proverbs says, if you have it in your pocket, pay it. And maybe you have to develop a script. You have to practice it. Someone wants something, you have to kind of have a stand. I still have a benevolent heart. I have a great heart. But now my benevolence is a certain amount. But now, and since that time, I'm paying attention to the high priority things. There are no substitutes. I don't have any more substitutes now. And what I'm finding is sometimes you might lose some friends because you are no longer sending them what they want. Well, what kind of friend is that? And if you respond to it because they're upset, isn't that a form of emotional spending? They're upset with you and because you didn't give them what they wanted you to have. You work for that money. Take out your phone. And when someone asks you for something, I'm taking mine out. I need X amount of dollars. Calculate how long you have to work to do that. And then go, okay, it's going to take some time. In my transformation, I've met some really good people. And one of them is my engineer, Noel Remus. And I am so excited because this part of my journey, I've learned some things. I'm now partnering to become a financial coach. Yeah, Yes, yes, yes. And this is a great time for me to really get serious. I've been kind of doing other things, but I'm now going to get serious because this topic is important. We want to live for the Lord. We want to be a person that He can use. We want to be a person who's can do great things in the kingdom. We want to be able to manage that spending. And if it's emotional, definitely financial coaching is a great thing. I am so excited about what we're going to do. I'll have her come on one day and we'll just talk about all the things that we're going to do. Capital choice. I said it. Great things. I've tried not to laugh a lot in the show, and I do like to laugh because the topic is serious. Now, if you have any questions or if you want to have any more information, email me at obiepaula@gmail.com. I have more specific scenarios to share with you. I have a belief that this is the one topic that many people are afraid of. How they spend their money. If they don't spend it in the right way, someone's going to be mad at them. Because people have an expectation that you're supposed to do certain things if you're connected to them. And you need to have a really sound mind. And you need to be able to practice. Well, I'm here for you. And I have another friend that can help you. Actually, she can help you now. I'm just starting my training. Why? We want to be impactful in the kingdom. I will always remember when I drove away from the place I'd worked so hard for. I wasn't even driving the same car. No, God is real. And He teaches us that if we just trust Him, just put our faith and our trust in Him, then He's going to do the rest. We're getting close to wrapping up. And as I say, you have to trust the process in order for the power of transformation to do its perfect work in your life. I'm hoping that you will listen again to this conversation. If you have any questions, then definitely you can email me because I have some personal stories that probably just will just help you. And again, you can email me at obiepaula@gmail.com. And this broadcast is available right after we close. We're going to close in about 10 minutes and it's available. And also we'll have a replay on Saturday at 2:00. This is a very important topic for me because it was a place of pain. Someone would say, and I have a couple more things to say, well, I just cared. There's a way to be responsible. And there's a way to give. And there's a way to be benevolent. There is always a way so that you can advance. Sometimes you might have a little bit of a drawback, but let me tell you, God transformed my thinking. Just like I had that conversation with the other friend, I have great conversations now. Okay, you're going to be okay. I will always remember that time, but I will also remember the person that He's now creating me to be in this spot. And I'm willing to share my story with you. I hope that touched you. If so, will you like and will you share? Because there's more to come about being able to deal with your emotions and how you spend your funds. All of those things are very important to the kingdom. It's very important to you. I've enjoyed myself tonight. It was a very tough topic. I hope that you have enjoyed it as well and that you will share. If you have questions, send me questions via email. If we need to talk about this conversation or have another heart to heart, I am open. I am just grateful that the Lord brought me through it so that I can be a witness that God can transform you by renewing your mind. And I appreciate you as we pull the train into the station. Remember what I always say, trust the process. We're going to see you next week. That's all I have. Take care, everybody.